Ali, I'm glad you're here to talk about this, because the amount of people who've asked me about this story is one of those ones that's been talked about all over the country, how this child could go missing and what is the update on it. So you have been writing about gaming consoles and how basically this gaming console is in the middle of the investigation as such. But going back to the beginning, let's start where this story starts with this little boy.
Yeah, it probably started around mid-August, essentially, and the Department of Social Protection got a form in from one of the parents of this missing boy, and essentially it was a renewal form for child welfare. So parents often are asked to submit these kind of on an ad hoc basis, and you just put in what school your kid goes to.
And they sometimes have to stamp it, don't they, or the GP
Yeah,
does.
there can be different things, yeah. So this woman, one of the parents, the mother, sent in this form, and she didn't include any school details, any GP details. It was a renewal form. So she basically was seeking to keep getting this €140 a month that all parents get for children. And the department went, well, that's a bit weird. This child is 7. Why isn't he in school? So they referred it to Tusla, who had interactions with this woman because she had her son adopted for the first kind of 18 months of his life. So they kind of went, what's the story?
He was adopted, or he was put up for it?
He was put up for adoption, yeah. So voluntarily. Like Tusla didn't take this boy away from this couple when they had him.
And was he with the family elsewhere?
Yeah, he was with the family up in Louth and also in Northern Ireland. And he actually formed quite a close bond, I believe, with one of the families during those first 18 months of his life. So Tusla went to the mother essentially and started asking questions about the boy. Where's your son? And she said, oh, he's in the south of the country with relatives. So Tusla, off they go down to the south of the country, knock on doors down there, speak to these relatives who the mother had said the boy was living with. And they say, we don't know what you're talking about. We haven't seen that child in years. So at this point, alarm bells are massively ringing with Tusla. Then they have to involve Gardaí because essentially the child is completely unaccounted for. So then I think it was August 29th, Gardaí knock on the door and begin of the mother's house in Donabate.
They arrive for the first time,
and begin to ask questions.
Does she tell them the same story at that stage, that the child's in the south of the country?
Well, I think there was a couple of different things said. And then another thing that she did was she texted her ex-partner, the father of the child, and said, the Gardaí are here, I'm telling them everything.
Right.
Then her phone blew up essentially with contact from the father of the child. So she gave kind of an informal interview at that stage with Gardaí. Her apartment in Donabate was searched. Kind of a couple of things. Well, one, I think, particular thing of interest was found by Gardaí, which was a photograph of the young boy that had been hidden. It wasn't out on display the way in most people who have children in their house, there'd be pictures of your kids everywhere. But there was nothing like that. There was no evidence that a child had lived there. Like there was no toys, there was no child's room, essentially. And they would have spoken to her informally at that point. And then 2 days later, she began to give her first kind of formal statements to Gardaí in Swords Garda Station. And at that point, she'd been assigned a solicitor, Martin O'Donnell. And she began then formally to give Gardaí statements. And she's given them several statements now. Like it must be 20 hours of questioning at this point. Like it's a huge amount. And it's quite a softly approach, I suppose, from the Gardaí. They're just trying to learn about her life, her son's life and death, and her ex-partner's life and death. So that's how it began, essentially.
So she's told him that this child died naturally in his sleep, essentially, or died in his sleep.
She's told them that she essentially woke up in the middle of the night. I think it was around July 2021. And checked her, going to the bathroom, and as she went by her son's room, she went in to check him, and that he was ice cold. So she then alerted her partner. Well, actually, he was her ex-partner, but they were still living in the same house. She alerted him.
And he was the father of the child?
He's the father of the child, yeah. So he was sleeping, I think, on the couch. She had her own bedroom and the child had her own bedroom. So they were They were broken up, but they were still living together. But I think they got on reasonably well, and there wasn't huge animosity there. I don't think. So they picked up the boy. They put him in a bath of water. They tried both cold water and hot water, but the child was dead. So then they said they completely panicked, and they made a decision, I think, that most people would just find completely unfathomable, to place the child's body in a hold-all bag and walk in the middle of the night together around 3 kilometres away to an area of wasteland, and to bury him there. And they didn't bring any utensils. They didn't bring a spade or anything. They didn't even bring a spoon, So they essentially had to dig this very shallow grave with their hands. They have told Gardaí.
Both of them at this stage have told the same story, have they?
Yeah. So they've contacted the ex-boyfriend who lives in Brazil. He's from the west of Ireland. He lives in Brazil with his current partner. And they are both saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
There was one conflicting account at the very beginning of the Garda investigation that said that the boy was killed. But at present, the two statements from both parents they're both unequivocally saying, we found him dead in his bed. He died naturally. We tried to revive him, couldn't, panicked, and then made this decision to conceal his death and bury him in this kind of shallow grave.
And presumably, since the Gardaí arrived at her door at the end of August, there wasn't an occasion when she and the father of this child could have had a conversation. Everything is now part of the investigation. They couldn't have had text messages between them. They couldn't have agreed what to say. So in other words, their statements are kind of independent, but the same.
I suppose so, yeah. But I mean, if you look at it from another way, Tusla would have called and spoken to the mother, and she would have sent them to the south of Ireland saying the boy was down there. So she would have had a couple of days there when she realised the jig might be up in terms of...
Right.
But
any communication then that would have happened between the two of them, between her in Dublin or in North Dublin and him in Brazil, would still be, unless they got burner phones or something like that, still on the communications there. So presumably the Gardaí have all that now as part of their investigation.
They did, yeah. They took her phone, but they have established that... well, she did text Gardaí she did text her ex when Gardaí arrived and saying, I'm telling them everything. But then probably about 10 days ago now, she got another phone and has conceded to Gardaí that she did ring her ex about a week to 10 days ago. And they had quite a fraught conversation, I believe, where he was quite upset with her that I think she was kind of accused of ruining his new life, I suppose, over in Brazil. But she has told Gardaí about that conversation. But yeah, he's been very cooperative as well. She's been hugely cooperative. Like I say, about 20 hours of interviews.
And I suppose really that's at the heart of it. She has been cooperative, and Gardaí are trying to take a soft approach with this because of the nature of it. But no body has been found, and the searches have been going on for quite a while. Yeah. What they're talking about isn't a complex burial. If they had no implements, they didn't...
This is it.
This is sort of dumped rather than buried.
Well, I think apparently the ground up there is very marshy. So apparently I was told it wouldn't be difficult to actually pull away the earth. But I mean, you couldn't dig that big a hole with your hands. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So she's brought Gardaí to 2 different locations, but they're both literally within meters of each other. They're very close to each other. But one concern...
And it's also a long walk, isn't it? 3 kilometres with a body in a baby's child's body in a...
I mean, can you imagine a more grim walk than that?
It's such a strange story.
It is. I mean, one slight concern Gardaí might have is that because where the child's body was left, could it have been disturbed by animals? And I know that's an awful image for people to think of, but because it was 4 years ago, and because he wasn't buried properly, I suppose, for want of a better word, could the child's body have been taken from that area, quite soon afterwards? So that's a possibility. Or the other possibility is her recollection is incorrect, and that's not where the child has been buried. But Gardaí do accept now that the child is dead. Yeah. But until they find his remains, then they can determine how he died.
And could they?
Yeah, forensics are so good now. Yeah. They actually could.
if the child died of natural causes, and again, this is going to be a bit of a trigger word for people, but if the child's body has been there exposed somewhat, even though it might be slightly hidden under undergrowth, the organs, etc., will not really be, I imagine, available for a PM.
The organs wouldn't, no, but in terms of, again, it's
if there was an injury.
Yeah, like if there was blunt force trauma to the head, for example.
Bones will still be.
Bones, exactly.
Bones are great for throwing up sort of secrets as such, but if what their scenario is that this child died from natural causes, that must be something to do with, the heart obviously stopping, and why that happened, or might be a little bit more difficult if this scenario comes to fruition and the child's remains are found. But in the meantime, so there's a big deep dive into this woman her then partner, and where they're kind of like where they got together and what they were doing. So who is she?
So she came to Ireland when she was like less than a year old, from Nigeria. She came with her parents and her siblings, and she was raised in a very kind of Christian, strict household in the south of the country. No sign of abuse or anything whatsoever. She had quite a nice upbringing, apparently. She did well in school. She finished her leaving cert. I believe she played Gaelic. She moved up to Dublin when she was 18, and she met her ex-partner, the father of the child, not long after that. He's from the west of Ireland. His upbringing has been described as kind of chaotic and some problems there, is how it's been described to me. I think they met online, began a relationship, and she became pregnant, and she had her son in 2018, and they were living in a shared accommodation situation at that stage, and she felt that's not how I want to raise a child. So she decided she wanted to give the baby up. He agreed. And so they voluntarily, rather than like Tusla can get a court order if you're doing a terrible job at raising your child and take the child away from you. But in this case, it was voluntary fostering, essentially, with the view to it leading to adoption. So they gave the child up, but they had a lot of contact with the child. He was doing overnight stays with them. They bonded very much with the child. And then when he was about 18 months old, they said, no, we definitely want him back. Tusla obviously then would have had to do their checks, I presume, to make sure it was a safe environment, given that they felt they weren't able to mind him 18 months previously. So they did that, we presume, because the child was given back. And then about 2 years after that, the boy died, Gardaí believe. And one, I think, cause for concern with Gardaí is that they don't have an exact date of when the child died. They've been given differing dates. And that's kind of raised eyebrows, because you would think that a parent, a mother, would remember, or a father, the date that their child died. But they were given a date in August 2021, I was told. But now I think it seems to have landed on July 2021 that he died.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the couple were broken up, and the dad, he moved out not long after that. I'd say maybe the stress of...
He's gone off to Brazil and has a new relationship there or whatever.
Yeah.
She has remained in this property where
She's remained in
living.
That property. Yeah, but he remained for a while, because I was told that 18 months after he died, he remained in Ireland for a couple of years anyway. The two of them went to the spot. They said they only went, or the mother has told Gardaí, they only went once to the place where they say they buried him to remember him, essentially. I think it could have been the father's birthday or in and around that time. But that they said they only once went back to where they say they left him, they left his dead body. And then, he eventually moved to Brazil, and he's been there for some time with a new partner. Yeah.
And what's her lifestyle looking like?
So I think she's somewhat vulnerable, and she certainly seems to be quite isolated. So she's kind of in her late 20s now. She doesn't seem to have a huge support system in the way that we all traditionally think of support systems in terms of physically seeing other people. She's really into gaming, online gaming. It seems to be her entire life. And the guards took her gaming console. Gaming, essentially, it's not just playing games, it's a lot of conversations online. So all of her friends are gamers, and she's gotten to know all these people very, very well, but she doesn't.
So is it kind of like a phone system, nearly? Like it's a
Yeah,
communication system gaming.
system,
so they play against one another, whatever
or with
they're
each
doing.
other, and then
you also
they talk. So they talk all about their lives. They talk. People can become very close.
They talk in their voices, or they sort of text.
I think it's typing. Yeah,
right.
But
okay.
then I'm sure they then swap phone numbers and
they can have a they can continue that friendship with, or they can meet up or whatever they want to do.
Yeah. So I think pretty much I'm told all of her friends are from the online gaming world. And so after the guards took her gaming console, I think that was like a huge blow to her, because it's pretty much what she does constantly, apart from going to the gym. So one of her gaming friends, I believe, who lives in America, actually sent her money so she could go get a new gaming console. And the guards actually took her and helped her to the shops to buy that gaming console.
You're getting the sense really of a very vulnerable person there.
I think it's certainly just not a world I understand.
No.
So I just don't get that. But I think for some people who are younger, I think it's a way of life. But it does sound quite isolated.
There's a sense of isolation.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
And you can get the impression, by the way, I think the way the Gardaí are treating it, and they are taking a soft approach to it.
That's it.
That maybe there is something there. What's interesting is, so the story has been very focused on Tusla, and that they handed this child back and they walked away and they never checked on it. I'm sure you've had the same. I've had some contact from people who have kind of know Tusla and maybe worked around it, and they feel that's a little bit unfair, a narrative that they can't follow up on every single case they get. You're pointing out that this was a voluntary handover of that child in the first place, so they didn't come to this with red flags, with alerts. There was no abuse of this child or anything like that.
No,
this was
no addiction in the home, nothing like that.
Yeah.
No.
So it's a different kind of a thing, isn't it? Then when the parents decide, well, we can cope now, and we want to make a go of this. They've obviously helped keep the lines of communication open between the parents and the child when the child is in foster care. And I'm sure lots of people have opinions about all this. I think Ireland definitely seems to have an approach that the family are best, and the parents are, if they can in any way facilitate that the parents are the best caregivers of all to the child. In the UK, they seem to, because of a number of actual child murders, I think they seem to be very hard in the courts and taking the children, different sort of a system there. But these parents were obviously keeping in touch with the fostered child, and then when they said they were ready, the child was handed back. And it's a policy not to follow that up.
Well, I think, so I think you're totally right in what you say. Family reunification is Tusla's objective. They say it's always best, if possible, that the child should stay with their natural parents, if that's suitable and appropriate and all of that. So they obviously deemed that the living situation was okay and he should go back there. And they've got a lot of criticism, like in terms of after that happens, should they do maybe a check every 3 months, a spot check, or just not even a spot check, just let the parents know they're coming, check in with the child, see how he is, check he's registered to school. Like, I think they're all valid criticisms of Tusla. They kind of say that everything is done on a case-by-case basis. So what happened in relation to their complete lack, they essentially had no contact with this child after they handed him back, none whatsoever, until they went and asked, why isn't he in school? Because the Department of Social Protection flagged that with them. So they say every case is on an individual basis. And like, we don't know if that would have made any difference in this case anyway. But then at the same time, someone has said to me, isn't it heartbreaking to think if that child had never been given back, maybe he would still be alive, He seemed to have a close bond with his foster parents, I think, who returned him with his favourite teddy bear, which I believe he was very attached to. But I mean, it's when terrible things like this happen that everybody starts asking questions. And now Tusla are doing a look back review of every child during COVID who they were dealing with. It's not going to help the little boy in Donabate, clearly.
And what about the search? Because it's still continuing, is it?
Yeah, it's still going on. Yeah,
and still focused on that area.
It's a huge area.
Is it?
Yeah, it's really big. But the mother has told them been very specific. And she's gone up again and been very specific. But they can't find any sign of his reigns. And that's, the longer, as you know, these things go on, the less likely you feel that there's going to be a result.
Especially when they're not looking for a needle in a haystack here. The site might be large, but it's been pinpointed.
Yeah.
Missing people. People constantly come up with they should search that field, they should search, but that is looking for a needle in a haystack.
Yeah. No, this is, I mean, they were very confident.
Yeah.
They were very confident that they would find him within a couple of days. When they were initially told where he was, they were really confident that they would. And they were quite surprised when they didn't. And that's when the mother then, they asked her to come up again. And she identified as slightly different, just like really close by. But you may, like, it's in terms of how long they'll continue to look. I mean, only as long as it's operationally worth it. They can't just keep digging. You know, that's the reality.
Have they got scanning equipment in, or did they bother with that? Because
no, I don't think it's scanning equipment. No,
because it's not that kind of a burial. That is,
no.
Yeah,
and like they haven't, as you know, they haven't released a picture of the boy either. Which is very different to the Kyron Dernan case up in Louth. And, you know, I've kind of been asking why, you know, because everybody wants to see a picture of the child. But like, is that just voyeurism on our behalf? You know, I mean, we want to see what this child looks like. But operationally, they're like, well, it's not, what's the benefit?
Well, it's of no benefit to them unless they're looking for sightings.
Exactly. Like with Kyron, they do not know where that child's remains are. So they needed to release that picture to see, because people are like, oh yeah, I saw that little boy. Jesus, yeah.
Well, you imagine they might need to change that. You know, they might need to change that if they don't find the remains, and if they do need to try and work out where the child was last seen alive.
They could do that, but I think they're also aware of, like I was saying, the vulnerabilities with the mother, and I think there might be vulnerabilities with the father too, to be honest. But they're also thinking possibly, if they release a picture of the boy, the picture that they found hidden in the apartment in Donabate, is that going to have a huge trigger impact on the parents, you know? So these are all things that have to be considered as well. And like they only have the one photo, you know? Like I'm not sure, it could be a photo from when he's far, far younger than when he actually disappeared.
It's a desperate, sad case, isn't it?
It is, it's awful.
Yeah, it really is horrible. Well, look, we'll come back to it anyway when and if there's any developments. Thanks a million, Ali. I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.